Hello and welcome to the world of Pokémon. Please choose a starter between grass, fire, and water. Now go defeat 8 gym leaders, then 4 elite trainers, then the final boss. Congratulations, you are the champion. Such is the story of Pokémon Red and Blue, as well as Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, released more than 20 years later. Game Freak is not against reusing content and ideas. Yet one of the staples of the series in its early years, the Safari Zone, was completely removed, with the final attempt found in Pokémon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. What tragedy occurred in the Johto Safari Zone that made Game Freak give up on the idea? Let's uncover the answer together in this third and final video dedicated to the Pokémon Safari Zone.
Although you know what feels like a Safari and shouldn't, finding the correct web browser. Well, if you love Pokémon games, don't look any further than today's video sponsor, Opera GX. Do you want to operate at Deoxys-like speeds? Opera GX will keep your computer fast while you game, and thanks to GX Control, you can even choose the resources you wish to allocate. Enjoy building your own personalized Pokémon team? Have the same level of customization thanks to GX mods. You can change anything you wish, from browser colors and themes to custom background music and even tab sounds. Always looking for the best partners? Opera GX has your back, thanks to its native integration with generative AI, such as AI prompts to save you time, or help via AI tools such as ChatGPT or ChatSonic for image generation. Want to try Opera GX? Don't worry, unlike Pokémon games, you don't have to start over from the beginning. The Quick Import tool will get you started right away by importing the data from your previous browser, like your history, bookmarks, and cookies. So evolve your web browsing experience by downloading Opera GX by using the link in the video description. Thank you for using my referral link, and to Opera GX for sponsoring this video.
The fourth Pokémon generation started with the Nintendo DS games Diamond and Pearl, and introduced the region of Sinnoh. The main attraction of Pastoria City is the Great Marsh. Don't let the name fool you. This area is yet another Safari Zone. Like its previous incarnation, the Hoenn Safari Zone in Emerald, for a fee of 500 Pokédollars, we are given 30 Safari Balls to catch every Pokémon we can, while limited to 500 steps.
The Great Marsh is also split into 6 areas, each featuring its own encounter table, and a monorail allows us to move between them without depleting our precious steps count.
The area being a swamp, the Pokémon we encounter are mostly water types, but normal, flying, and grass types are present as well. There is also an 8% chance to encounter Arbok throughout the march if we are playing with Pokémon Fire Red in the GBA slot, assuming we are using a 2-slotted Nintendo DS. Speaking of Fire Red, let's talk about Pokémon encounters. The Gen 3 games were defined by having incomprehensible Safari Zone mechanics. Pokémon Diamond and Pearl don't. The inner workings are simple to understand this time. Upon encountering a wild Pokémon, we have 3 options: throwing a Safari Ball, equivalent to a Great Ball, throwing bait, which makes the Pokémon easier to catch but more likely to flee, and throwing mud, which makes the Pokémon harder to catch but less likely to flee. Any sharp Safari Scholar will have noticed the bait in Gen 4 has the opposite effect than the bait in Gen 1 and its Gen 3 remake, begging for players to be confused. Don't worry, the developers added an NPC whose only purpose is to clarify the effect of each option. Thanks. So how does bait and mud work? Every Pokémon available uses both their predetermined catch rate and a unique Great Marsh flea rate, going from 60 to 150. Once either bait or mud is thrown, both rates are changed similar to stats modifiers. If we throw bait, the rates will have a +1 modifier, multiplying them by 1.5, while throwing mud will result in a -1 modifier. And like stats modifiers, plus or -6 is our maximum. Finally, once the flea rate is modified, it is compared to a random number between 0 and 255, and if our rate is higher than the random number, the Pokémon escapes. So, is this system any good? Does it fix the Safari Zone concept? While its simplicity and the fact it uses a known game mechanic are appreciable, it remains held back by the fact many Pokémon already start with a 50% escape chance. And with no way to tell which species has a low flea rate, as this number is specific to the Great Marsh, there is little reason to mess with either bait or mud. Just throw balls and hope the Pokémon doesn't escape. Why bother with extra mechanics? In a very expected twist, if you know how previous Safari Zones work, Diamond and Pearl's attempt at the concept includes mistakes from the past. Remember the Gen 4 mechanics being simple? Surprise, they are as confusing as the previous generations. For starters, while throwing bait always increases the catch rate by 1 stage, the escape chance increase only has a 90% probability. The same happens with mud, where the catch chance decrease has a 90% chance of occurring. In theory, this is advantageous to the player. In practice, how could anyone play around a mechanic when it is random, unlikely to happen, and never properly explained? It gets worse with the other feature theoretically here to help players: the binoculars. Every day, each division is assigned 1 additional Pokémon to its encounter table, taken from a pool of extra Great Marsh encounters. This addition has a 10% chance of appearing, achieved by lowering Wild Marill and Quagsire's encounter chance by 5% each. This should make every Great Marsh visit unique, and give an incentive to come back every day. Unfortunately, the main way to learn about each division's daily Pokémon is to check the binoculars present at the entrance. Here's how they work.
For 100 Pokédollars, this incredible tool shows us random Pokémon available in several areas. If that doesn't sound too bad, let me rephrase it. For 100 Pokédollars, the game is extremely likely to show us Pokémon we already know exist in the park.
If we want to learn which 6 daily Pokémon are currently active, our options are to either get extraordinarily lucky or check the binoculars repeatedly, while establishing a list of the Pokémon in each area. And that is assuming the chosen daily Pokémon are not already present in the Great Marsh. Thankfully, seeing a Pokémon through the binoculars is not a requirement to encounter it in the marsh. All these issues reveal to us that even with the cover of a new generation of Pokémon games, the developers were still not interested in making the Safari Zone an area simple to interact with. And we have not yet talked about the dreaded oversight in Sinnoh's Great Marsh. This time, because of a programming error, Whiscash has a flea rate of 0.4%. That's it. Funnily enough, this issue was not fixed in Pokémon Platinum, the finished version of Diamond and Pearl. The first and main change in Platinum is graphical. The deep areas of the swamp are now noticeably darker, allowing us to avoid them. The Great Marsh's design was also revamped for better navigation. Additionally, the encounter tables were altered and feature extra Pokémon, including my personal favorite, Banana Tree. Finally, the daily Pokémon's 10% encounter chance is now exclusively taken from Wooper. For as many differences exist between Diamond and Pearl and Platinum, the Great Marsh saw surprisingly few changes. Love it or hate it, it is working as intended. So much so, in fact, that more than 10 years later, in the Switch remakes Pokémon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, the Great Marsh was virtually untouched. Like Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, BDSP ignored the improvements made in the third version. Old layout, old encounter tables, old daily Pokémon, and binoculars. Although one difference exists with the Gen 3 remakes. Safari Zone capture is still very much present, making them the first game since Heart Gold and Soul Silver to feature the Safari mechanics in the Johto Safari Zone. If you have played the original Gold and Silver games, you may be wondering where this area comes from. After all, the core Gen 2 entries did not feature a Safari Zone, at least not officially. See, there are two unofficial Safari Zone. The first one is only technically present. In the Gold, Silver, and Crystal files exists a beta Safari Zone, comprised of a small map and a disable warp to the Safari entrance. Although there is grass and water, no wild Pokémon will appear, except for the default encounters tied to fishing rods. While this map went unused in Gen 2, and is clearly a development placeholder, the Safari concept was adapted to this new generation in the form of the Bug Catching Contest. Held in Johto's National Park on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, the Bug Catching Contest is free for anyone to take part in. Upon entering, we are given 20 Park Balls, equivalent to Great Balls, and are tasked to capture the best bug Pokémon we can find in the park. Instead of steps, the game limits us to 20 minutes, and we are allowed to use our team to assist with capture. Interestingly, the Pokémon encountered during the Bug Catching Contest are different from the ones usually present in the National Park, despite taking place in the same area. Once the 20 minutes have passed, our catch is given a score, and ranked against the other participants. We then receive a prize, with first place granting us the newly introduced in Gen 2 Sunstone. It is the only way to obtain this stone. Given we need 2 to evolve Gloom into Blossom and Sunkern into Sunflora, how do we guarantee first place? First, we need a high score. The way a Pokémon's score total is calculated depends on its hit points when captured, as well as max HP, the sum of all its stats, its individual values, if it is shiny, and if it is holding an item. This means we want to capture a Pokémon with strong base stats, at the maximum level available, and without hitting it once. Our best option lies with catching a level 14 Scyther or Pinsir, giving us an 82% and 81% chance respectively of finishing in first place. But that is only if Cool Trainer Nick is not taking part in the contest. Who is Cool Trainer Nick? A bug-catching machine. We would need a near-perfect Pokémon to beat Nick. What can we do? While the contest is underway, we can talk to the other competitors. Nick is located west of the park's fountain. If we save before entering the bug-catching contest, then check for Nick and reset the game until he is absent, our chances of winning the coveted Sunstone increase dramatically. The Bug Catching Contest is a marvelous addition to the Pokémon games. It is an inventive spin on the Safari Zone idea that cleverly showcases Gen 2's Day of the Week feature while having simple to understand mechanics. No surprise then that Heart Gold and Soul Silver kept and even expanded it, with an upgraded scoring system, better statted Pokémon, and new species and rewards after obtaining the National Pokédex. Even the day feature is enhanced, with certain Pokémon appearing only on Thursdays or Saturdays. Overall, the bug catching contest is a phenomenal example on how to make a Pokémon game inside a Pokémon game, and could have been a taste of things to come. Alas, Hard Gold and Soul Silver did not follow up on this trend. West of Cianwood City is Cliff Edge Gate, a small cave initially blocked off. Once we have rescued the Ampharos in the Olivine Lighthouse, the path is open, granting access to routes 47 and 48. Both these routes are new additions, unique to the Johto remakes, and include new music, several items of interest, such as the White Flute, the Lagging Tail, and the Wave Incense, a patch of grass swarming with Ditto, only accessible with the HM Waterfall, a cave containing one of the Gen 3 fossils, depending on our version, and the Embedded Tower. This tower, accessible by using the HM Rock Climb, is the only way to obtain the legendary Weather Trio in Gen 4. Once Red is defeated, we can either obtain the Blue Orb in Hard Gold or the Red Orb in Soul Silver. Entering the Embedded Tower with an orb will make either Kyogre or Groudon appear. If we catch both Pokémon and bring them to Professor Oak, we will be rewarded with the Jade Orb, which will in turn allow us to encounter Rayquaza. This side quest is clearly endgame content though. What is accessible immediately is the area beyond routes 47 and 48, the area this whole part of the map was created for, the Johto Safari Zone. This area also features new music, and all the excitement has attracted a couple of stalls, where we can buy bowls and vitamins. Once we enter the Safari Zone proper, we are introduced to the owner, who challenges us to capture a Geodude as a small tutorial. So how does this unique Safari Zone work? Not so uniquely when it comes to encounters. In fact, the mechanics are the same as Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. Bait, mud, 90% chances, stat increases, everything. What is unique is the fact this Safari Zone is composed of 6 distinctly separated areas, randomly taken from a pool of 12, each with different Pokémon available. Desert, forest, marshland, meadow, mountain, peak, plains, rocky beach, savanna, swamp, wasteland, and wetland. The first 6 areas we start with are different on each playthrough, and we cannot switch them until Baoba's second challenge, where we're tasked to catch a Sandshrew. This challenge is a tutorial on the area customizer. Every area is now available to us, and that means a plethora of different Pokémon of varying types accessible early in the story. We are not even limited by step count, and can keep going until we obtain the catch we really want. Meaning, apart from the hidden and confusing catching mechanics, the Johto Safari Zone promises a wide variety of encounters and freedom in how to approach it. So, what makes it this infamous? The answer lies in our third interaction with Baoba. After being given ownership of the entire safari, we need to obtain the National Pokédex from Professor Oak. The previous Safari Zone owner will then call us once more with the final feature of the Johto Safari Zone: blocks. These blocks are decorations we can place in any area of the Safari Zone, up to a maximum of 30. If we want to have fun. If we want to fulfill the Johto Safari Zone's true potential, these blocks are the bane of our existence. Here's how they work. On top of the list of always active Pokémon, each area has a list of Pokémon who will only appear if that area is decorated in the way they enjoy. For instance, in the Plains area, Wild Ponyta appear once we have 5 blocks liked by Pokémon on rocks, or to be precise, 5 points in rocks. As days pass, each currently active area increases the score of each block depending on its type: plains, forest, rocks, or water. There exist other blocks, but they don't attract Pokémon. For example, after 10 days of having the marshland area in our safari, each plain block placed there will add 2 to the plain score instead of 1. After 20 days, forest block will count as 2, then rocks, then water, every 10 or 20 days until 250 days have passed, where all the blocks will count as 7 points. So, if we want to encounter Metang in the mountains area, which requires a score of 56 in rocks, because we are limited to placing 30 blocks, we need to have the area active for a minimum of 30 days, then place 28 rocks blocks to attain the necessary score. Most Pokémon require a single type, but some, such as Bagon in the swamp area, can require 2. In this case, we need 56 rocks and 35 forest, which means waiting 110 days, then placing 19 rocks blocks and 9 forest blocks. At this point, you may have a simple and perfectly understandable question. How am I supposed to know all that? Just guess. This is why the Safari Zone in its current form stopped existing. This is the epitome of hidden and needlessly complex mechanics. This is the culmination of years of Safari Zones so obtuse, most players ignored them. The Johto Safari Zone is not even that bad. It features a straightforward layout and an appreciable variety of Pokémon, especially at such an early level. But the useless bait and mud, the incomprehensible block system, and the built-in chore of waiting months to encounter a single Pokémon sours the whole experience. But what the Johto Safari Zone really suffers from is an identity problem. The original goal of the Safari concept was presenting exotic Pokémon wrapped up in a fun minigame. Kanto has several species unique to the Safari Zone. Almost the entirety of Hoenn Safari is composed of Johto Pokémon, unobtainable in Gen 3 until Emerald. But by Gen 4, the Pokémon were no longer exotic. They were just species from previous generations. And the minigame aspect was crushed under the staggering number of Pokémon the developers wanted to make available. Both the daily Pokémon feature in the Great Marsh and the blocks in the Johto Safari Zone become much more frustrating once the post-national Pokédex encounters are added, as they force the player to deal with their obscure mechanics to have a chance at catching anything exotic. By the release of Black and White, the Safari Zone was failing both as a Pokémon catch-up mechanic and as a fun minigame. The concept was finally removed and replaced with areas that fulfilled each purpose separately. Want to catch a wide variety of Pokémon from different generations? Maybe you should visit the White Forest. Looking for a fun minigame? Pokestar Studios' doors are wide open. In my opinion, the removal of the Safari Zone is a wise decision, and its reintroduction would not make sense in a world with more than 1,000 different Pokémon species and regional forms. Modifying the catch chance with bait, rocks, or mud doesn't matter when the most challenging aspect is to simply find the Pokémon we're looking for. Speaking of, I am searching for Tropius in the Great Marsh. So thank you for following me on this Safari Zone retrospective. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, I must go and play the game the way it was intended.
Happy New Year 2024! I hope it will be happy and prosper. Thank you so much to everyone supporting this content on Ko-fi, including Mini Assassin, SCJ643, JCBTV, Arcats Makes Pokemon Figures, Y Lambda, and Katoxis. After this thorough investigation into the Safari Zone, we will be back to the Gen 3 Living Pokédex with Pokémon XD Gale of Darkness next video. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks again for the time you have given me, and I wish you a wonderful day.